Welcome, everyone. So I'm Rabbi Daniel Bogard, Central Reform Congregation in St. Louis, Missouri. We're the only synagogue in the city of St. Louis. And I am one of 5 rabbis at CRC. 4 of us are part-time, but there are 5 of us there. And so in the streaming era, I'm geeky and I have just leaned into this. At the very beginning of the era, I wrote the guide for live streaming for the perplexed, which a number of folks have read and used as just sort of a starting point. But I have significantly evolved how I am doing our setup since then, and wanted to do another one of these webinars to share that with folks who might want to sort of change up or improve or upgrade or whatever the language is, what they're doing. So first, let me just show everyone a little bit about what I am talking about. So let's do a little showing off here. Here we go. So we've got all sorts of things that we can do to make this happen as we're making our way through a service. Right, all the things I'm just taking you through the last Shabbat morning I led. Here you go with this. Okay, I'm hoping everyone got a sense of what this looks like from that, yeah? Any questions just seeing that before I take you through how I'm doing it? Okay. Let me show you how I'm running it, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it. Yeah, Michael, you look like you were about to say something.
Well, so I guess my question was, I'm assuming that was a recorded video.
No, I was doing that all live.
No, but I mean the music that was coming on, that was a recorded video.
Correct, but I can do that just as easily by bringing in someone live at that moment as well. We lead entirely from our homes at our congregation right now, and I'll often bring in 2 or 3 people live through this system. And also we'll feed the output of this to Zoom. And again, we'll take you through all of that. I just kind of want to show off what this does for a moment. Okay, here you go. This is another camera. I have a Stream Deck over here. We're going to take you through what these wonderful little devices are. But does everyone see all these buttons? And actually, maybe it'll work better if I swap that out. Let's try it the other way instead. Make the Stream Deck big. Sorry, one moment. Merge that in. Okay. Can you see this Stream Deck right here? So this is totally customizable. Each of these, I'm going to show you how you do it. This is a piece of hardware that I highly recommend. You don't need it, but I highly, highly recommend it. It's like a game changer in terms of being able to lead services while you are producing. Here, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see what it looks like. There's my desk. Okay. So I'm going to take you through everything that I was doing again. I apologize. It's going to be really compressed and weird looking in the corner, but you're at least going to get a feel for it this way. Oh, no, it's going to send me back. I can't show you the Zoom deck at this. Sorry. So I can explain why. I pre-program each of these buttons on the Stream Deck to do all of the changes. And so when I press a button, it's going to change it. But anyways, you'll get a sense just from this, right? I press the Moda Ani button and this happens. I press it again and it goes away. I press the Matovu button and it's not just going to bring up the words. It's also going to shift my webcam over to the right so I don't get sort of on top of me, right? I press a different button. I have a Suke and Us is what I call this button, right? This is our sort of Suke de Zimra dance mix that we do at CRC kind of. So these buttons we're programming to do whatever it is that we want. And whatever software you're currently using to stream, this will plug in. If you've got a camera that you can run commands on, this will run those camera commands. If you've got a microphone, it'll mute and unmute, right? That's what this button is right now. Right now, you probably, oh, I don't have it set up to work because I'm not feeding you audio that way, but normally that's how it would work. Okay. Did that make some sense about how I'm doing all of this live? how I'm pushing the buttons. I understand that no one could take this and just go do it right now. We're going to take this all apart, but I first want to just be very clear about what it is that we're trying to do and what it looks like when we're doing it. So let me turn off my spotlight and just open this up for questions. I am not monitoring the chat because I'm doing all these other things at the same time. So
okay.
Yeah.
Daniel, question. What happens when you have like a longer prayer? Do you program it onto more than one button, or like what do you do with Amidah, for example?
Oh, here, let me give you the button so you can see it also. So just like that. Did that make sense? You didn't see? I'll show you one more time. Look over here on these buttons. I'm pressing the first button. I just have it labeled. Sorry, it's hard to see, I'm sure, these tiny little buttons from there. It's labeled a vote 1. I press it, goes up. Press it again, disappears. A vote 2, so on and so forth. The other thing I want to say is it's very much a reformed Siddur that we have here, and a CRC version of a reformed Siddur, but everything that I have made is available entirely for free. I'm happy to just share it with anyone. So you don't need to start from scratch, whatever your tradition is. You can take mine and like you can take my votes and givurots and modify them if you want team instead of hakol or whatever it is that you want to do. So it's all out there, and I'll share all that as we go. Okay. Any other questions on just sort of looking at it in the feel and what we're trying to accomplish before we dig into how it's done? Okay, so I'm going to encourage everyone to go ahead and go to this website quickly, centralreform.org/tools. And I have it pulled up on mine as well. I want to take us through some of these key terms and some of these applications. If you want to go ahead and install every application that's on this list, go for it. If you have not yet registered for a not-for-profit account for Singular, you definitely need to do that. Singular, well, we'll explain what that is in a moment. Okay, so we're not going to start on the key term. Oh, go ahead. Was someone going to say something?
Would you say the link again, please? I'm sorry.
It's on the screen right below my face, centralreform.org/tools.
Gotcha. You're tiny. Okay, gotcha.
Sorry. Yeah, you can click the view button in your upper right and choose speaker view if you want to see me big screen.
Dan, you're getting a weird echo going.
Yep, it was when Mark unmuted, so I muted him. Okay. So I want to talk conceptually about how we are doing each of these pieces. These visuals that you're seeing right here, right? Whether we're talking about my name or whether it's one of the Siddur overlays or whatever it is, the website, these visuals are coming through a service called Singular.live. Singular.live is, and for folks, just a show of hands, who has dealt with some sort of on-screen Siddur so far? Who's dealt with one that's not a screen share, where you've actually sort of typed in the words and you're doing an overlay kind of thing? Anyone? Dan has, Sam has, a few folks. So first thing I should say is whatever system you're using already, this will play right on top of it. So if you've got some other way that you're streaming, this will drop right into whatever your method is. The first piece of software, though, that we're talking about is Singular.live. It's this website that generates all of these for us. Here we go. I'll do a screen share over here. And you can see Singular.live. Spotlight for everyone again. Singular.live is where the Siddur lives. And this is where I will share it with you. Whoop, sorry, I pulled on a tablecloth and almost took everything down here. This is where the Siddur is made in the back end. This is where I went and put everything together. This is where the sort of original hard work was. And today it's all available to be shared and copied and pasted and all of those sorts of things. What happens with Singular is that Singular is generating actually just a website, actually just an image on a website that is we're feeding into our stream, and it's just going on top of it. So the advantage of Singular, there's a number of advantages to Singular and why we use Singular instead of doing whatever way we were doing it before, or overlays. The first is you build it once in Singular, as I did, and then it can be used with whatever your other setup is. If you're primarily on Zoom, if you're primarily streaming, if you're using OBS and like really into it, or if you have no idea what OBS is and all you do is open up a Zoom window, like whatever it is, whatever level you are on, if you're using vMix, this will feed right into it. And it's totally free for not-for-profits. Actually, I'm pretty sure the developers are Jewish because their default religious theme uses a Mogen David instead of a cross, which I always appreciate. So what we're doing is we're sending Singular.live to an encoder. Now, an encoder is a piece of software that lets us take every single sort of thing that we'd want to combine, images, audio streams, videos, whatever it was, and put them all together on the graphic. So right now on my encoder, what we're looking at, right now in my software, if I was using OBS, is there's a background picture of the ark at my synagogue. There's a feed from my webcam. There's a feed from my microphone. And then on top of it all, there's a clear Singular overlay that you can't see right now because it's not showing anything. But then when I go and push a button, it shows up on top. Okay. Did that make sense to some people, to all of us? Let's get like a thumbs, middle, high, low. Where are we at on that?
So is that an actual device that you as an encoder, or is that a program like OBS?
The program that I would encourage you to use is called OBS. You can download it at obsproject.com. It's on the links over here. OBS is an open source live streaming production platform / encoder. And I'm going to take everyone through as a part of this, how we will set up this entire chain of everything to speak with each other. The other thing that I want to say is, like, for the other rabbis that I work with, here's the stream deck, by the way, if you want to see what it looks like on its own. For the other rabbis that I work with who are not necessarily the most technically literate folks in history, I put this together for them. And I just drop it off and all they do is plug it in and push their buttons. So I am happy to talk with folks here if I can be helpful on something like that. I'm doing some sort of private consulting around that, but my real hope is that if you are generally technically literate, that you can take what we're doing today and really run with it. The goal is that this should cost nothing to very little.
This might be a next level conversation, but if more than one of us are leading from different locations, can we have, you know, the words on my screen when I'm highlighted and on their screen when they're highlighted?
Yes. Yes. All of that is doable with the system. All of this is, you can certainly Google how to do that or how to implement it. I would also say that as you lean into doing this, you'll figure out how to do it, or call me. And I'm happy to help set it up. I'm also working on a way of like setting this up and shipping out a little SD card that you just pop into it and it's good to go kind of system. I don't quite have that yet, but I'm close. Dan.
Yeah, so you're feeding Zoom into OBS?
Other way around. I'm feeding OBS into Zoom. So I'm using OBS right now. In fact, right now I'm using OBS, right?
Right.
Actually, that's not true. I'm using vMix, which is like a professional version of OBS. But if I was using OBS right now, I'm feeding it into Zoom from OBS. So essentially, I'm just using OBS as like a webcam playground for me. And then you can feed it wherever you want.
So, but that means that when you do an overlay, it's only showing on your Zoom? No, you're feeding OBS into Zoom.
I am feeding OBS into Zoom, so it only shows up on, right, look at it right now. I'm pushing a button and it shows up on my picture, but it does not show up on your picture. However, if you're leading with multiple folks in multiple locations on Zoom with Singular, and this is the beauty of Singular. Remember when I talked before about how it lives in the cloud rather than being on your computer? The beauty of Singular is that I could, if you have it set up properly on your computer, Dan, I could press these buttons and control it from where I am. In fact, I didn't press that button, Elenu. I'm pretty sure that someone else is definitely pressing that button.
Right, but if you had two clergy on a screen, let's say, it would only show up in your window, not across both windows.
You can do it however you want.
Okay, I want to see that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I got rid of it, but imagine it back to this image.
Right.
Except instead of it being a video, it's a live person.
You had two Zoom windows there, and the lower third was below the two Zoom windows?
It's not Zoom. I'm using vMix. This is getting into a next level kind of stuff.
Sorry.
But I'm happy to share
Okay.
my full CRC setup of how we do it if you want to
Okay.
talk separately.
So you can feed multiple feeds into OBS that then proceed to export into one login on Zoom. Like, let's say I'm in one location and somebody else is in another location. I can control it not at Zoom level, but at the OBS level. Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct. Again, bringing in multiple people from multiple locations is next level stuff and not what we're covering today. And it's definitely next level stuff. We do it all the time now. And it's super simple and smooth for us with our setup, but call me up if you want to do that. And I'm happy to talk you through how we do that, but it's, yeah. Okay,
So,
other questions here. Yeah, Jackie.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know we've been like ping-ponging back and forth, but I just want to clarify with Singular. So I've used OBS before where you can like create a scene, put in your own graphics, make lower thirds. It's been useful for me before, but when you add in Singular, what is the workflow there? Like, do you make the scene in Singular and code it to your board and then it just works with OBS, or do you have to still make a scene in OBS? Like,
I'm going to take you through my whole workflow. I'm going to do it from the beginning.
Awesome. Okay.
And go through. Yep, that's what we're going to do next. In fact, is I'm going to set it up as if it's from scratch, unless there's someone here who wants to set it up remotely and we can screen share you and I'll walk you through it if you'd rather. Other questions though before we jump into that?
Is the
Yeah,
Stream Deck necessary, or is it just a
not-
tool that makes your life a lot easier?
It is not necessary, and in fact, the software that we use to control the Stream Deck also has a virtual version of what the Stream Deck looks like that you can, for instance, load up on an old iPad. That being said, if you've got $250 that you can spend, go buy yourself a Stream Deck. It is the biggest game changer I have had in terms of the ability to stay within the flow of leading services while producing it, that in 10 months or whatever it's been. Because I can push a button that says Shema or Via Hafta or whatever it is without having to go to the like mental place of, okay, I need to mute this and unmute that and the whatever. And that's the beauty of these buttons, is that you program each button to do all of the things you want for that moment in one button. So it takes pre-production work, right? Like you got to set up every piece. But the other flip side is when I go to lead services on Shabbos morning this week, 90% of the work for my Siddur is done. I'm just going to go in and make the tiny little changes of, you know, this poem that I want to add or this liturgical change or the whatever it is, right? Okay, other questions before we jump into workflow?
Follow up on that. Does it have to be the person leading who is pressing the buttons on Stream Deck?
No, and in fact, that's my like brilliant new toy. I've taken a Raspberry Pi, if anyone's familiar with them, these tiny little computers, and I can program one of these and mail it to you if that helps. Or send you the SD card. I've taken a Raspberry Pi and plugged in the Stream Deck to that, and I run the software on this, so it's not even running on the computer that's producing it, which means you can go in two different directions here. You can either do it power over Ethernet, where the only thing this thing needs for power and for control is an Ethernet cable that you plug into it, or if you have power that you can plug into, you can run your Stream Deck on Wi-Fi. So eventually this is going to turn into something that we're going to have on our Bima when we're back in person, where I'm just going to, you know, sort of double-sided tape it up there or even below the Bima or however it is. And that way we need no local computer. It can also run a confidence monitor for us if we want to do something like, there's lots that you can do with these.
I think that Sarah's asking, like, so what I'm thinking about is my senior rabbi is, I would imagine, doesn't want to have to push the buttons. Can I push the buttons for my senior rabbi from my home to her home 4 towns over?
Yes, and something like that you don't need a Stream Deck for. Something like that where you're producing for someone else, You can easily do it within the Singular website actually itself. If all you're doing is putting up those on-screen visuals, you're going to have some latency issues. Just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, for instance, once we are back in person, our goal is to create a core of people who will be a volunteer visual Siddur production crew for the live stream. So yeah, for sure you can do that. And I'll sometimes
So
do
there's
that.
so there's 32 buttons on this Stream Deck. Do you not ever find that you need more than 32 scenes?
All the time. All the time. In fact, here, let me, where's my button? Stream Deck button. There you go. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me just give you the full screen Stream Deck instead. So you see these buttons over here?
Yes.
So I got endless pages. So for instance, right, like
Thank you.
all the way back down, here's my camera cuts for a bat mitzvah, where we're bringing in 4 different rabbis from different locations, plus a bat mitzvah family from their location. So I use 2 Stream Decks for that. I have one Stream Deck that's entirely for my camera cuts that I leave open here. And then I have another one that I run my visual Siddur on.
Thank you. So the fact that you can have more than one page answers that question. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
So how many pages?
I think 99.
And the question you mentioned that, like, if you go and tinker with the preset service ahead of time with a poem and other things, you do that within the Singular?
We'll get to that workflow in a second. I'm going to take you through the whole flow, where I'll show you how to do that. But before we do that, any other questions, comments, thoughts on this?
Can I just clarify what the signal flow is that you've explained thus far? You have in Singular a series of prayers and pictures and all your visual, which you then have a set of series or things in OBS that you can select either to highlight Singular or a rabbi or you or a background. And then your Stream Deck is basically your controller that allows you to manipulate in real time what appears on the screen. And then in Zoom, you select OBS as your capture. So as opposed to coming off of like a webcam, everything goes through OBS and that's basically your webcam.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. OBS becomes your webcam. If you are primarily putting services together for Zoom, then OBS becomes your webcam. That's exactly correct. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, Mark.
So the Stream Deck can be programmed to pull something, video off of YouTube or audio only. So everything is at your fingertips as opposed to need 10 like being an octopus.
Exactly. And now you've seen why the Stream Deck is a game changer in terms of leading. In fact, I would truthfully say whatever you're doing, if you find yourself pushing a lot of buttons, even if you decide to do nothing else that I am showing today, buy yourself a Stream Deck. It's a game changer. Okay, let's go through this flow. So here we go with the desktop share. Are you seeing this? Is this coming through okay for everyone? Okay, so this is OBS. Who here, show of hands, has used OBS before in some way or another? Few people, about half it looks like. Okay, so OBS is going to be this big black thing in the middle is whatever picture we're going to be outputting. So that is where we are going to put all of our sources. I know that this has got to be like really tiny font right now, isn't it? It's tiny for me too. We've got these blanks on the bottom. We've got scenes and sources. Sources, are we having trouble seeing it? Is that what I'm seeing people nodding? It might help if you have installed OBS to do this along with me. And if not, go ahead and install OBS, obsproject.com. You can find, again, all the links should be available there. Right, here's the beauty, again, of using this whole Singular system. All I had to do was push a button, and even though I'm on a screen share, it'll pop up and whatever it is, right? Like in here, you've got your link to the website. Okay. OBS works on scenes and sources. Sources are anything that we're going to put into this big black box to output. So we're going to start by adding what it calls a video capture device and what I'm going to call our webcam. So I'm going to choose our webcam here. Here's a webcam that's not being used by anything. Oh, and you're not seeing, oh, there it goes. Okay. So, right, we've added a webcam source to OBS. It's already picking up our microphone that we can see because we look down and we see that the microphone line is going back and forth as I talk. Do you see that moving down there? Right? I can put this in the corner, drop it in there, grab a corner. All of a sudden, I am full screen. Okay. This is a basic OBS setup. This is, in fact, the most basic OBS setup that you can have. We've just added this. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our overlays. So in order to add our overlays, we are going to go to Singular. Let me make the font bigger here. That I can do in this one. There you go. Is that readable now? Singular has compositions and control apps. If you're not using, if you are not using a Stream Deck, like I don't remember who it was, Joel maybe asked about, someone asked about producing for someone remotely, like putting the words up for someone remotely. You don't need a Stream Deck. You would open up the control app, and here's the control app. And I can just do things. I can control it right from here, right? I can press the play button and turn on the logo, and you can see that it's turning it on my screen. All these things turns it on my screen, right? Where it's being controlled right here. And you would see it a little better, but it's so big that we're losing both screens. You got a preview, you got another, and you can edit it here too. This is, in fact, all of these are like random things that I needed to add in last minute. This one's our congregational website because I was leading services with our other rabbi who gave the wrong website for our congregation. So I went behind the scenes, I jumped into this, I typed in our website, I popped it up on screen. Okay, now, let me just show you the composition. This goes along with the control app. These two things are tied to each other. This is where the control app's drawing it from. This is my Shabbat morning and B'nai Mitzvah control app. Or to say it differently, this is where every page in my visual Siddur lives. When I share all of my things with you, what I'll share with you is this control app. And so you'll go in here and you'll go in and write, like, you don't have a Rabbi Daniel. So you'll go and you'll change this. So it becomes Rabbi so-and-so, right? I better change that so that the next time I press the button, it doesn't pop up as Rabbi so-and-so, or that's what will happen. It happens all the time. I do one of these examples, and the next time I go to lead services, everything's messed up. Anyways, this was the part where we did the work of building, the animation that comes in and out and making it look pretty and making it look like that. But the beauty for you is all you need to do is come over here and say, okay, Hallelujah is one on the bottom. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to change the words to be whatever it is that you want, whether that is for your website, whether that's for your name, whether that's for some prayer that you want to create, whatever it is, it's all here waiting for you to copy and paste and duplicate. And I know it looks confusing, but like, it's really pretty clear once you get into it here. You click on Baruch Hu. You look over here, you see the words for Baruch Hu. You notice that I misspelled something wherever, and you go and edit it, or you okay. Back to our control app, or back to here. I mentioned before that every Singular control app or composition, everything we make in Singular is going to output to a URL. That's what it's giving us right here, is the output URL for my Shabbat morning. Meaning, what's the website where it is displaying all of the things that we are putting out. So you can actually see it here. This is that website. Is it going to load inside of this? No, it does not seem happy to load inside of a browser. However, if instead of trying to load it inside of a browser, we go back to OBS and we add another source. This time we're going to add it as a browser source because it's just a website. We're going to call it Singular Shabbat Morning. We're going to paste in that link that I got from the other place. We're going to have to remember that 1920 by 1080 is what HD is, or you Google it each time. And now, even though you can't see it, I have my Singular browser image on top of this. So now, hopefully, when I push this button, it should go on top of our OBS as well. Right? Or maybe it'll be easier to see it this way. Back to our control app for a second. Here's our control app. Nope, that's our composition. Here's our control app. Let's make it a little smaller. And when I press play over here, it's going to show up in OBS because I gave it that output URL from this and just laid it right on top over here. Okay. Where are we at? Are we totally confused or just mostly confused?
Mostly confused.
Let's do the thumb thing again. Ups, middles, downs. And feel free to like wiggle if you're like almost near something. Okay. We've got mostly middles, some downs. We'll call that a success story. Okay. So again, you can use my guide to live streaming for the perplexed as a starting point for this. I will also drop some other links on that link setup. You can go back and watch this again or call me up and make an appointment. If anyone wants to do that, I'll drop my registration link here. Calendly.com/Rabbi Daniel. Feel free to use that just to book an appointment.
Daniel, while I'm partially confused and trying to figure this out. So you build your deck essentially in Singular.
We haven't talked about the deck yet. The deck is next.
No, but your prayers and all these texts, they are built somewhere, right?
The overlays, all of the overlays are built in Singular. Yes,
so I'm using
correct.
the wrong terminology. So all of the overlays are built in there and then called up inside OBS.
We're overlaying it in OBS, but then we are calling each individual overlay up with either the built-in control app, right?
With Elgato.
Or with the Elgato Stream Deck, exactly, right? We can either use this or we can use that. And it doesn't matter because they're doing the same exact thing as far as we're concerned.
And those Singular files, they are built as individual files that are downloadable, shareable? How does that?
Shareable within Singular. So once you get a Singular account, you can email me and I can share all of those with you and then you can go crazy. It's as easy as swapping out our congregational logo for yours and you got to make one color. You only have to enter in one thing to change the color. And then you've got your own color in your own set. And I'll even give anyone who wants the setup file that I have for all of my overlays. So instead of starting from scratch, you're welcome, or not all my overlays, my Stream Deck. So instead of starting from scratch with your buttons, you can just take my buttons and change them to work for you. Whatever works for people, I'm happy. Everything I made.
Very generous. And while this is a side question, you are using, presumably, if you're in the sanctuary, is there a way to also program the PTZ camera moves onto your Elgato deck combined with?
I'm on this is the PTZ camera that's going to eventually be in my sanctuary, but right now is sitting in my living room. And in fact, you can see that there's another PTZ camera that I have set up over there that I'm using to take the Stream Deck. That's what's giving us that image right there. So yeah, all of it is being totally controlled through
through the Stream Deck.
Through the Stream Deck, correct.
Fascinating.
And so you can program a button, for instance, that brings you right back to this image. That's what I did, in fact, is that wherever I am, right, whatever image I'm at, I have one button that I can push that brings me right back to this spot immediately on my PTZ camera, and you're right back on me.
Okay, that's a game changer.
Yeah. Stream Deck will control it, no problem. Stream Deck will control anything you want. If you're using a fancy mixing board, it'll mute and unmute your channels if you want. If you're whatever you want to do, yeah. Okay, other questions on Singular and OBS? We're going to get into the controlling in a minute, but first I want to at least make sure, even if we couldn't replicate it ourselves, you can find all sorts of guides, or you can talk to me, that we conceptually understand that what we're doing is taking something totally separate, Singular, which is a website, and we're putting it in OBS as an overlay layer on top of our webcam. And then we're just controlling it through that website, or through the Stream Deck, which sends the messages to the website, right? But that these are totally separate things. So if you don't use OBS, there was someone who sent a message on one of the threads saying that they use like Wirecast or Stream Quick or whatever people use, Singular will drop right in without issue. You don't need OBS for this. But if you have no idea what any of these words that I just said are, use OBS. Okay, other questions on that integration before we go to controlling? Yeah, Jason.
What's not clear, I haven't used OBS yet, and I'm feeling a little dumb at the moment asking this question. I don't understand what the difference is between what you're doing with OBS and Singular, because what you showed us on OBS was you writing in the Hebrew prayers, but then you're saying that Singular is the overlay that's gonna, I don't understand what Singular is doing or why you need both.
OBS is a blank sandbox that lets you bring in any sources that you want to create your webcam stream or your live stream or whatever it is. So you can bring in whatever you want. You can bring in a pre-recorded video and add it, and you can bring in your webcam and add it, and you can put them on top of each other, and they will live right on top of each other the way that you set it up in OBS. So what OBS does is it gives you the place to bring all of these toys together and make one image from them. So what we're doing with OBS is we're taking Singular, which lives entirely somewhere else on the web, and we're just adding it as a source in OBS, along with my microphone as a source, along with my webcam as a source. And as far as OBS is concerned, it doesn't care between any of those sources. It's just combining them all and producing one image out of it.
So then why did you have to type the words for Baruch Hu into OBS?
I didn't.
What was that control? Was that control panel? What was the control?
That was
panel?
Singular.
That makes a lot more sense from a brain.
Okay, this is Singular.
Oh, okay, got it.
This is the Singular control. This is the Singular composition, meaning where like you actually build each of the prayers. And you can tell because they're living in a browser, by the way.
Got it. Okay, I thought we were looking at OBS, and that's why I was confused. And now I think I.
This is sorry, yeah, I had them next to each other. I could see, and it's the same grade. This is OBS. And in OBS, the only sources that I have right here are my Singular Siddur and my webcam, right? And if I toggle on here, we'll put on that. But if I toggle off the webcam, then all you get is the Singular overlay. And if I toggle off the Singular overlay, all you get is my webcam. Okay, did that make sense? Any other questions?
Much sense was made. Thank you.
Good. Other questions on this connection before we start talking about how to control it all with the Stream Deck? Okay. So just when you thought that you were really like it was easy, now we're going to get complicated. Okay, we're controlling all of this through a piece of software known as Companion BitFocus. Again, it is, switch that around, BitFocus Companion. It is on a link. It's on that same set of links that I gave everyone before this has been my most pressed button, I think, of the centralreform.org/tools. And you go ahead and download that. You're going to have to create an account, and then you will download and install that if you're going to use this. And what that does is that opens up something that looks like this. Oh, I said that looks like this, but I'm only showing you my webcam. So that's really not very exciting for you. Looks like this.
Right, Daniel, you said it was on that tools page, but I only see an OBS WebSocket and an NDI for OBS. I don't see anything called companion.
Oh, did I not put that link on there? I'm so sorry. BitFocus, one word, BitFocus. Well, here. You're seeing my desktop share. Why don't I do it this way? It's BitFocus Companion, but also, right? I can BitFocus Companion. Right, and there you go. It's a little small right there, but you get the idea. Google it, download it, install it. It's going to open up a program on your computer that will look kind of like this. It might just live down in this lower bar, and then it'll look like this. And the way that you get it to show you the control is you hit the Launch GUI, Graphical User Interface. You hit that Launch GUI, and it opens up in a browser. You don't want to close it. It needs to be running on your computer if you are going to use this. Again, if this step becomes too complicated, this is why I built a Raspberry Pi. So you don't need this. It just runs in the background without anyone seeing it. And I'm happy to help build those for other people. Okay, but this is what it opens up. This is the BitFocus Companion Control app. This is where we build all of those. So first we have our connections and instances. Here's everything that I have that BitFocus is talking to right now. It's talking to vMix, which is kind of like OBS. It's talking to all sorts of different singulars because I add in each singular composition separately. I built a separate Kappalat Shabbat and a separate Shabbat morning, a separate family service, and a separate High Holy Days composition. So that's why they're all added differently. It's got my mixer at the bottom, which is not plugged in right now, which is why it keeps saying syncing because it can't find it. And this you all just set up just by typing in here, in the search is the first thing that comes up. You can add in your singular, you add it in, you can add in your OBS. It's pretty easy once you do it. That's where you add in everything that you want Companion to be able to control. If you have PTZ cameras, this is where you're going to add them in. You can also add them in OBS separately if you want, but you can add them in here. You can, anything that you want to control, adds here, and you'd be amazed how many different things can be controlled by this. Just like, look at this list of, I can't even go down, it's so many right now, but that whole long list of different brands, those are just manufacturers. So endless number of things, whatever you're using can be controlled by this. Here are our buttons. Here is where the magic happens. So we're gonna go ahead and create a blank one. And we're going to do this together. Let me clear this log. Okay. So let me, these are blank buttons. I'm going to click on a button. You want me to make this a little bigger? Would that help? There we go. I click on a button. I'm going to set the button type. I'm just going to call it a regular button here. I'm going to give it a name. Let's call this, I don't know, Modani. We're going to go over here, down here. Now, here's the key actions. This is where we tell this button what we want it to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to animate in. I happen to know that I called the Shabbat morning one B'nai. That's what I gave it. So B'nai animate in. You see it drops it up here. And now I can select any of the different compositions that we've made within B'nai. It has already pulled them. So here will be easy. We'll just go with Talus Blessing here. I'm going to go down to the bottom, animate out under the key up options. We'll also make this Talus Blessing out. I may as well change the name so it's Talus Blessing. I can change the color of that button. I like to change these colors so that I can immediately and clearly see different sections of the liturgy. Like I will do Shema and its blessings in one color and Amidan another. Just it helps me to be able to immediately find my spot when I'm looking at it. Let's see. So then all that I would have to do is I push that Talus blessing button now. I forgot one button. The latch and the toggle button is important. It means that when you push it, it stays down rather than like when you push it, it goes right back up. And you push it a second time to go up. So I'm going to press that Talus blessing. You can even see that it went across there. And you can see that the Talus blessing just went across the bottom of the screen, right? Now I'm going to press the button again and it goes away.
So Danny, I'm seeing that when it comes up on the screen, the bottom of the Hebrew is cut off a little bit on my Zoom. Where would you go to move that up on the screen? Oh, wow.
It was just cut off because you had your mute and your stop video going on top of it. That's all.
But let's say I wanted it
Singular.
It up higher.
That's in Singular. All of those things that are, if it's about the overlays, it's in Singular. If it's about controlling everything, it's in BitFocus Companion. If it's about setting up a moment and a look, it's in OBS. So in fact, let's go back to OBS for a second. And what I'm going to do is I am going to create another scene. I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to call this one right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my webcam and I'm going to create, I grabbed the Singular instead though. I'm going to grab my webcam. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to shift it over here to the right so that I have a setup for when I have something that goes across the left side so it doesn't block me off, right? So now I have two different Singular scenes, OBS scenes. I have the scene that I'm going to rename and call center, and I've got a scene that I've called right. That's it. And if you wanted to get fancy, you could put a picture of your arc behind there or whatever you wanted instead of the black, right? And then you could make your center a little smaller like I did with this look, right? By the way, I'm switching back and forth here between what you're seeing just by pressing a button on my Stream Deck. So I've created another one, right? This right and this center. Now we have two different scenes. So let's go back to Companion. In Talus, we're going to add in something here for
Can I ask a quick
OBS.
question?
Yep.
Do you have two instances of OBS running? For example, when you press the button on the Stream Deck to switch in and out of those different overlays that you had, I noticed the OBS program you have open only has two scenes. So do you have another instance of it open?
I'm not using OBS. I'm using vMix in the background.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah. That's why. But yeah. Don't, if that didn't make any sense to you, pretend like you didn't hear that because yeah. And in fact, I don't have OBS turned on in here. I have to enable it because I don't use OBS much, so it's not usually enabled. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a button for OBS. Change scene, I'm going to choose, right? Because I can add anything that I want to this button. It can all be added on. I could also add something with my mixer to mute or unmute something. It's going to give me my scenes. It's going to pull it, and I'm going to have it be in center. I'm going to make another copy of this exact same thing. I'm going to paste it, just Control-C, Control-V. This one, though, I'm going to find one that is on the right. Reader's Cottage 2 is definitely on the right. And I'm going to change that scene to be on the right also. And now let's go back to OBS and let's put up our Stream Deck in the corner so you can see it. Here's our two buttons, Talus Blessing, and I didn't name the other one, but still called Talus Blessing because I copied and pasted. But anyways, right? I push the first one, we get the Talus Blessing, me in the center. I push the second one, it'll shift me to the right. It'll give me Reader's Cottage. Push it again to make it go away. Go back here, it'll shift right back there. It's kind of like magic once it works. Okay, did that make sense what I just showed? Did that seem doable? Sort of, maybe, no?
Daniel, just following along with you for a second. Since yours already set up, you already put the API key to Singular in. I don't know if you want to walk people through how to find it. I'm trying to find it and can't.
Yes, that was a step deeper than I was gonna go. Singular has tutorials on that, I would say.
Okay.
Google how to connect Singular to OBS, and you've got a walkthrough that'll take you through all of that. Or again, I'm happy to do all of that one-on-one with folks.
Well, it's really connecting Singular to BitFocus.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So the BitFocus is where you program the buttons, but then the buttons themselves are on Elgato. So you don't use the Elgato's own, I'm assuming they have a proprietary.
No, Elgato has their own software that comes with it. Don't install it. But also here's what I mentioned before. Here's our emulator. And this is a fully touchscreen friendly emulator of our entire setup. Oops. Sorry, I hit a button there, you saw. In fact, you saw how much it worked that I accidentally hit a button and that popped up, right? So one option for you is always to load up this emulator on an iPad or an Amazon $35 tablet or whatever you want to do and have that up by your Beema too, or on your control or on your whatever. The tactile buttons are pretty wonderful, I got to tell you, to like actually have a physical button that you push. And I say that as a pretty digital person. Okay.
But you have there's no screen that is part of that deck, right? So while looking at that, you don't know what's actually happening once you've.
No. The deck is a set of screens.
No, I understand that, but there is no screen like, right now, your deck, if you only are looking at the deck, you don't know what's actually happening on the feed. You need to have a separate screen set up with the feed so that you can see what's happening.
Correct. The deck is not a confidence monitor. The deck is a control surface.
Okay.
If you want to see what the stream is, you have to have either a separate monitor that's connected to that. And again, if you're looking for a permanent installation, talk to me separately and I can talk about how you do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gila.
So this is going to be the stupidest question of the day because I'm like miles behind everyone. But okay, so what I'm looking for is we're just Zoom, because we don't like live stream things, but just Zoom. And, when you have the screen share of a Siddur, it just kind of takes over the whole screen and everybody feels kind of shunted aside and not seen anymore. So if I have people in gallery view on the screen, is there anything I can do with just overlays? What happens there? I mean, is that ridiculous?
No, that's a great question. Not ridiculous at all. The answer is this. If you're feeding to Zoom, the only people's feeds who will get the stream, who will get the overlays are people who have OBS running that you've configured. So, for instance, it would be totally possible, Gila, for us to install OBS on your computer and set it up so that when I push this button, it comes up on your computer and my computer, or just on your computer, or just my computer, or what. We can set that up where my button push does any and all of that, but it's not going to show up on, Linda's screen because Linda doesn't have OBS installed with this plugged in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, you can't put an overlay at the bottom of all of these pictures. You just can't do that within Zoom, but you can put it at the bottom of any individual feed. And that's how you should think of OBS, is that OBS is a sort of art studio playground for your webcam feed.
I see. So if I'm on if it's just me, like on speaker view, then it will show up at the bottom of mine and people will see it.
It's what I'm doing here in this meeting today.
Okay,
exactly.
But if you go to gallery view, it disappears.
Well, it doesn't disappear. It's just going to get small, right? Like I'm looking at everyone in gallery view right now, and I'm popping up my website button, and I can't really read it. I mean, I guess I can right? So yeah, but remember, everyone can control that. So I always recommend, in fact, I should have turned off the spotlight since we're not doing that right now. I always recommend spotlighting yourself or whoever's leading at that point, and then someone can unspotlight it and see everyone if they want, but at least it defaults to that view.
Okay, super.
Okay, but that is the next piece that we're going to, or the last big piece, which is how do we send all of this to Zoom? So any questions on these? I mean, I'm sure there's a bazillion questions actually, but are there any questions that we should talk about right now on what we've done so far before we talk about how to send this to Zoom?
I have a very quick question. So when we were talking about BitFocus and that there's an emulator, but obviously the tactile buttons are great, but there's also an emulator. So you can access that emulator without buying the Stream Deck, or
You do
okay,
not need a
just
Stream
making
Deck to
sure.
run BitFocus. BitFocus Companion is an entirely open source software that
Okay,
does
great.
not require any
So-
hardware.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like I would prefer the tactile buttons also, but it's good to know that we don't need to buy 3 Stream Decks necessarily. You can have 1 real one and 2 virtual ones, or all virtual ones. So that's great to know.
Yep.
I have a quick question when you're talking about restreaming. So we're talking about bringing it into Zoom now, and our current process, once we have our Zoom stream, is to then put it out via another restream service to go to Facebook Live, YouTube, and other
Use
player.
Restream.io as well. Yep.
Yeah, so we used to use Restream. We're actually using Live Control right now, but same process. Does that remain the same, or does any of this functionality include Restream? Yeah.
That doesn't
So
change
you're
that
still
at
going
all.
from Zoom. Okay.
Still going from Zoom to Restream. Yeah.
And all the loss of quality that provides.
And all of the loss of quality that provides.
Okay.
There are other options for doing that.
Right.
So for instance, you could go live from OBS while you're also in the Zoom. Now it'll mean that everyone else won't be live. It's just your image that will be live. So for some of us, that's how we lead services though, right? Like we're the only ones who are sort of broadcast when we broadcast, even though we've got other folks in Zoom. So that's a totally fine solution as well. As you can go live from OBS.
So then
And your quality will be a lot better. Your audio quality, your
Right.
video quality,
For sure.
when you're doing it from OBS is like night and day. If you're buying a computer for this purpose, make sure you get one with an NVIDIA graphics card. Quite important.
So wait, so if I
And not a Mac, sorry.
restreaming from Zoom onto YouTube, for those who choose not to log into Zoom, my main thing happens in Zoom, but then YouTube is like a backup and an additional access. I can send, instead of sending Zoom to YouTube, I can actually just send my picture to that.
But
And
you lose any participants, correct? Anyone you're bringing into Zoom, candlelighters or grandparents, if it's a bar mitzvah, you lose all of that if you go that route.
Yes, unless you go one step more complicated and you have it be bi-directional, where Zoom goes into your feed and your feed goes into Zoom, which you can also do. That I do that pretty frequently, actually. Yeah, and in fact, over here, you just see start streaming on the right, and that's all you would do is you click start streaming and it would send it to your stream. Okay. Any other questions before we jump into how to send this to Zoom?
How do you use this with your team?
What'd you say?
Like I'm on a 4-person clergy team, and if I'm the only one who's got the words for Baruch, then like it's going to look a little weird that like Jason's got Baruch on the bottom of his screen, but he's just a quarter. He's a quarter of the page. I'm curious how you're utilizing it in worship and the way that that's affected, like your cue sheet and the shot lists.
Are your 4-person clergy team that you have going on, are you leading services together?
Yeah. So once Zoom allowed us to spotlight multiple people, like, oh, it's like we're on the Bema and we can all lead together. And even when you're not saying the prayer, you're still leading.
And
So
are other folks in your Zoom or just your clergy team?
The whole congregation's on. Well, not the whole.
So
the Jews who show up to Shabbos are also on Zoom.
Yeah. Your solution is probably to install OBS on all 4 clergy's computer
So
and have
all of
them
us would
set
have
up.
Baruch at the bottom of the screen.
And so everyone would have Baruch Hu on the bottom, or whoever's leading that thing would be the only one spotlighted and they would be the only one you'd see, or however you want to do that. Yep. That's probably your best bet. I use vMix for that purpose, and I pull all my clergy team in through vMix separately, and then I feed that summed feed through to Zoom. So I'm taking care of all of that on the other end, and I don't have to worry about that. But that's more complicated than you should do. Unless you want to like dive into live streaming production and then go for it. Okay, other questions here before we go to how to bring it to Zoom. Okay, so NDI, N like Nancy, DI. Who's heard of NDI? For those of you who, I imagine many of us are looking into buying a new PTZ camera for our sanctuaries or something like this, make sure you'll be doing yourself a huge favor. Get yourself an NDI camera. Here's my free, I'm undermining my consulting business, but I'll give you the cameras that I recommend here. The Bird Dog P200, if you can afford it, is about $2,800 and has 30x zoom. That's what you're seeing me through right now. Or the Bird Dog, same company, P100 has 10x zoom, and that's what I'm actually putting the Stream Deck through when I'm doing that is through the Bogard P100. Those are the cameras that I recommend as you're buying. Okay, other questions before we jump in here? Okay, NDI. We're all familiar with HDMI, right? Right, an HDMI cable, like you plug your old school DVD player in with or whatever it is. Your monitor probably plugs in with an HDMI cable, right? The professional version, broadcast version of HDMI is called SDI, if anyone's heard of it. Doesn't really matter, but just I'm giving you some terms. SDI is being replaced by a technology called NDI, the N standing for network. And the beauty of NDI is that it lets full quality audio video streams be accessible over an Ethernet network with nothing more than an Ethernet cable, meaning a local network. It doesn't work well when you hit the internet. It's using enormous bandwidth. But on your local Ethernet network in your building, in your house, in your whatever, things that are directly plugged into your switch or your router, it means that the only thing that is plugged into this camera is an Ethernet cable. There's no power, there's no control, anything. It doesn't lead to a box. It doesn't do anything. These cameras just plug in with Ethernet. That's just some background about NDI because we're about to use NDI tools. So one of the links that I have on there is NDI tools. I encourage you to install it on your computer. You're going to have to give them your email. They will email you a link and then you can download NDI tools. NDI, again, this video transport, audio transport technology lets us take the video and the audio from anywhere and make it available anywhere else as well. So you'll see there's a link that I gave you in there for an OBS plugin. It's an NDI plugin that lets OBS send out the output to NDI. Over here, I'm going to turn on the OBS main NDI plugin or output there. And then because we installed those webcam or the NDI tools, we have an app called Webcam Input NDI that installed. You see that? And what I'm going to do, this is going to get hard to see. I'm sorry, because it's going to be tiny, but it opens up just a little tiny thing here in the corner, right? If we're familiar with Windows that says NDI, there's a Mac software too. And it gives me every NDI feed that it's seeing. It sees the NDI feed from my two cameras, right? I can actually go ahead and just switch my webcam feed or the feed that I'm sending to Zoom right now to one of those cameras, right? With that, now you're seeing the camera that's focused on my Stream Deck, right? Let me send it back here. I can send it to my OBS output. That's one of my options here too. This is coming from OBS. You can tell because it's using my junky built-in webcam and you can see how grainy the picture is. Or I can switch back over to my output from vMix, which is what you've been seeing the whole time. The beauty of this is that what we're doing is we're telling OBS to create that NDI input. And then I'm going over into Zoom. Let's see, I think I can do it if I do it this way. Here you go. Sorry, it's going to get real meta here for a moment. You're seeing yourself Zoom, right? I can go over here to Zoom and I can change my video camera, my webcam, from being a webcam to being New Tech NDI video. And I can change my microphone from being my microphone. Sorry, I know there's like a bazillion different options here, to being New Tech NDI audio. And what that will mean is that whatever's coming out of OBS is going to go straight into our Zoom. And what this solves, by the way, if you've hit that start virtual cam input, is that this sends the audio as well. So if you want to go ahead and add a pre-recorded video as one of your scenes, right? You've got a musician who records a song. You set up a separate scene in OBS for it. Right. In fact, I can take you through that right now. We'll do that just real quickly. I'm going to add a scene, new scene. We're going to call it video. I'm going to add a source here, and I'm going to add a media source, a video source. I'm going to find a video file somewhere. vMix storage. There we go. There's one. And I'm going to add it in here. And now I have this output that I could be choosing to send as a video. I could set it up in my companion so that, let me go back to me, so that a button handled all of it. I can do however I want to do that. Okay, did that make sense?
Daniel, can I ask a question? Normally when sharing videos through Zoom, I find that for other people on the other end, it's very choppy and it lags. When you share videos through OBS, is it significant? Yeah, it's better. Okay. I was going to say your video looks fantastic, the ones that you were sharing.
It's the number one reason to do it, as well as, and the reason we use NDI is that NDI is going to send the audio and the video together, tight, synced, no issues. Yeah, in particular, people run into issues when you try to stream a video and then send it over there. So when you stream it into OBS, what happens is you're not sending the stream directly to Zoom, which is where you run into trouble. You're instead actually creating a brand new stream as far as your computer is concerned and sending that to Zoom. So that's where you get rid of those problems. Exactly. Yeah, OBS will be your real friend there. And again, if you don't even do the visual Siddur, if you just want to use some videos, build out some videos and get yourself your Stream Deck, and you just set in a button for each of those videos and for yourself. And when you want to press the Ahava Rabbah video, you press it. When you want to go back to you press the you video. Okay. That is my spiel. But what questions do we have for the last 20 minutes here, or the last few minutes?
So on your website, you have two things under NDI. One is NDI for OBS and one is NDI tools. Can you help me? Because I feel like I've ran
NDI
out.
for OBS is a plugin for OBS that lets OBS create an NDI stream.
Okay.
NDI tools is a set of tools, most importantly for us, that webcam input, which will allow us to take any NDI stream. And that could be, by the way, the NDI stream from one of your PTZ cameras that you have on your network in the future, or it could be the NDI stream that you've just created from your OBS output and turn that into a webcam input.
So since I've been using Manycam, is that something that I can just use as my NDI source, or?
Yeah, you won't need the plugin. If you're using Manycam, I think Manycam already has an NDI option and you should be able to add it that way. But if not, but you don't even need to be able to do that because you've got that input through the webcam input through NDI tools, right? NDI tools lets you choose that OBS output as a webcam. And then as far as Manycam is concerned, you're just adding a webcam that's called NDI. Does that make sense?
That's the NDI for OBS as opposed to the NDI.
Not for OBS. If you're not using OBS, you don't need the NDI for OBS plugin. NDI for OBS is just a plugin that lets OBS talk to NDI, just like the OBS WebSocket is a plugin that lets Companion talk to OBS. That's all that's going on there.
But I still need the NDI tools.
You still need NDI tools, correct. Other questions?
Daniel, I was just wondering, you've shown everything with Zoom. Do you ever use this with Facebook Live? Because I noticed that you were having trouble getting Zoom to work with Facebook Live. So do you use OBS with Facebook Live as well?
So yeah, actually we don't stream from Zoom for exactly that reason, right? You click those three dots, you go live on custom streaming service or Facebook or whatever, and it just like sits there, right? We've all been there, I assume, by this point, like we had happen today. So that's why we stream from within OBS also, and we send the OBS feed to a Zoom room. So they are separate. What goes into the Zoom room is separate from what's going out, even if it's the same thing, if that makes sense.
Well, say our congregation prefers to do everything like right on Facebook Live.
So you don't need to mess with, if you're doing that, you don't need the NDI tools. You don't need the NDI plugin because that's just about getting it to go over to Zoom. You just will do everything with OBS, Singular, and BitFocus Companion.
Okay.
Yeah, Daniel, the companion is, you showed us how to label buttons on Stream Deck with that. Is that the reason, is that all it's used for? I'm assuming it's a lot more powerful than just to do that.
Well, it labeled the buttons and it programmed what those buttons do then, right? So here, let me take you through one that I actually use pretty regularly. Here's my own Shabbat morning, right? So look at Modani. Modani, when I press that button, first of all, it's labeled, it's purple, it's a distinctive color that I can find. You'll notice on here, I make the red ones, the things that are videos, just so that I know. Over here where I look though on the actions, here's where I program in what that button does. It brings up Modani. It sends me to my vMix, essentially the scene in OBS if you were using an OBS. And then when I press it again, it gets rid of the Modani overlay. So that's what Companion does. This Companion is a programming location that speaks to basically anything and everything dealing with live streams.
The content is created on Singular.
The content of the overlay is created on Singular. It is added to your stream through OBS, and it is triggered through the software that is BitFocus Companion, which is itself controlled by your Stream Deck. Yeah, sorry, that's a whole long stream of things there, but yeah. Once you put it into use, it's really obvious what each of these pieces does.
You said you would share your workflow.
As soon as you get a Singular account, shoot me an email and I will share all of my Singular overlays, the compositions with you so you can build them. My only request with everything that I provide is that as I am, you close that door, as I am treating this like with an open source spirit, if you're gonna take my work, I ask that you also treat it with an open source spirit, meaning just like, if anyone wants it, share it, give it to them. Yeah, so I'm happy to do that. I am happy to share my, export my full configuration for BitFocus so you can start by modifying all of my buttons if you want. If you wanna go with a Raspberry Pi, I'm happy to give you an image of it, whatever it is. I'm happy to give any of my resources that I've made in terms of software to anyone that wants them totally for free. The only thing that I am ever charging anyone for is if you want me to come in and customize your setup, I'm happy to do that, but I spent so many hours voluntarily doing that for everyone else for so long that like the only way that I could cut down on the work was to start charging.
Well, you're being incredibly generous, and I'm immensely grateful. You'll share your email. Did I miss that?
Daniel@centralreform.org.
Daniel, you're an incredible mensch.
Totally happy to help with this and glad that it can be useful.
You know, you also are making it impossible to resist trying this out, which I have successfully resisted for some time. While I was listening to you in the beginning, you recommended that we go for, trying to install OBS. And what I quickly ran into is that it's asking what I want to stream to, what service, and Zoom is not there. So can I move beyond?
You can't stream to Zoom. Zoom, you can't stream to. This is for live streaming. So if you, for instance, wanted to live stream to Facebook or YouTube, you can figure that. But otherwise, just skip that part. You don't need to worry about it. I definitely recommend while you're configuring OBS, use my guide to live streaming. It's a little dated because it's 8 months old now, but it'll take you through the settings that you should do. Let me try to find a link to that. If you Google guide for live streaming for the perplexed or something, it's on, I think there's going to be I'm hoping there's a new version that we're going to come out with as partnership of My Jewish Learning, by the way, with updated and all these sorts of things. But until then, I think you can find it on, what's that one out of New York? Rabbinic Innovation Network, Rabbinic, something like that. If you Google.
Yeah, it's there. I got it.
There you go. Someone dropped in a link. I can give you my direct Google Drive link so you don't have to give them your info too. Other questions while we're together until we.
So I want to just also say how incredibly generous you are, and I it's just incredible. But I don't know which course at rabbinical school you took, but I clearly missed that one. But the OBS, does it come with an equivalent to BitFocus Companion that we should not install? Is that what I heard you say earlier?
The Stream Deck comes with its own control software that I do not recommend.
Okay, that's what I was
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I much I highly recommend not installing the Stream Deck software and instead just sticking with BitFocus Companion.
Great, thanks.
Daniel, as far as the slides that you make, that you use in Singular, where are you creating those? Are those built in Singular, or are you importing some other graphics and visuals?
Totally built in Singular. I took a preset that they had and then over a few months highly modified it. I built all of this originally for my Shul's High Holy Days. That was sort of the original thing, but yeah, no, it's all built in Singular, and all that work is, but like all the tough work of that, if you like the look of my overlays and you don't want to substantially change them outside of colors and logo, that's done. It's entirely done for you. You can just take these and change them to whatever your words are that you want to use, and it's ready to go. Everything's there for you. I have chosen, after having a variety of different things, to basically only have these two overlays, the side and the bottom, the two looks, and everything is a copy of those two.
The reason I'm asking is because right now I'm just taking screenshots of the online Mishkan Tefillah and using those graphics to share on Zoom. But in terms of typing out prayers, you would have to manually type out all the Hebrew vowels, English transliterations and stuff.
Thankfully, like everything's available for copy and paste on the internet these days.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I built the thing that I have so far, is just like going through and copying, pasting. Sometimes it meant I had to go take the Ashkenazi Siddur from Sefaria and like manually put in things like the Imahot, Metim Duakol, et cetera, but a lot of that is out there. Yeah, I mean, right, like we all know this, the problem with visual tefillah, and it's not a problem, is that it wasn't built for streams. That's not what it was for, and it's been adopted into it, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's not what it was for, and this was built for streams. This is not a setup that you want to use in your sanctuary on screens to help everyone see. This is what you want to add to your streams. So in fact, at our shul, that's what we're planning on, is post-COVID to have a production booth in the back where these are being overlaid onto the streams, even though the folks who will be there will not see it or be aware of it at all. So that we can create a product for folks who are streaming that is built for people who are streaming, rather than the camera in a corner kind of approach. Anything else? I'm happy to just answer random questions. I gave camera recommendations, but if there's other things like that that people...
Just a observation, there seems to be a little glitch in the download the guide, that I put my email address in there, and it says, and I hit submit, and it says enter an email address, so you should know about that.
Oh, I don't, that's it. I have nothing to do with that. That's there's a link. If you look down in the chat, I just dropped a link. That's the direct link to my Google
Great.
Doc.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Okay, the visual tefillah that it's on the CCR website, the package or the individuals, those I haven't used any of them. Those things, tell a little bit about difficulty with usage. You were kind of alluding to that, but I didn't pick up on it enough.
Oh, just I don't want to knock those at all. A lot of people put a lot of work into them, and they're a beautiful product. They're not fundamentally built for live streaming. They were built for an in-person era on screens while people are there.
Okay. And
they have been adopted to live streaming, but they've been adopted to live streaming through a screen share approach within Zoom. And so that's all I was saying, is that this is a solution that is built for live streaming from the ground up.
Okay.
And looks like it, I would suggest, as opposed to something that doesn't look like it.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, anyone who wants to get really complicated and jump into vMix, I'll send you my vMix presets, which I use to stream 4 rabbis and a bat mitzvah family together. And then I'll give you my controls. You can just like jump right in.
For something like that, are the attendees on Zoom, or are the attendees just on the other side of the broadcast stream?
You can do whatever you want.
Wow.
Yeah, you can set it up however you want. Our shul right now is like even a step more complicated than that, which is that we just stream, and I have someone, because we stream in different locations and only one rabbinic household leads services at a time, and the other rabbis are lovely, less than techie people. I work with amazing rabbis, like amazing. rabbis, our founding rabbi, Susan Talvey, who's like a game changer. And
your wife.
and my wife, who's over here. Yeah. And Randy Fleischer, but they're not techie people. So I totally lost the thread of what even your question was. I'm sorry.
I lost the third of my question too. That was you made my day. You just made my day.
I do have a question about the backgrounds, because what you are showing on your camera is a very bland blank screen, right? And then you seem to be pasting yourself into an OBS or vMix, whatever, with the background of the sanctuary. One of the things that Zoom has provided, as you can see, is you are not seeing me in my spare bedroom, but you're seeing me with my own books, but they are not where I am. So the question is there, like, do I just cut myself in the webcam to something that only has me and then plot myself into that image, or do you use the overlays somehow differently?
You would do that you would do the virtual background within OBS instead, and it's a different setup, and you would Google how to do that, but it'll probably be a chroma key. If you look down at Kyle, he's got a green screen behind him, which is always the best way to do something like that. But you can absolutely do it within OBS. Yeah.
Okay.
So one more question about if I get this all set up, but my chazan is singing, is there any way that I can put up like the side thing while he is? I can. Okay.
You would have to load up OBS on his computer also.
Yeah.
And then you can do it no problem.
Okay. So does he need all these other things as well? Like, I'm controlling it all by my Stream Deck.
Yes.
He's not. Okay.
Yes. Are you in the same place or different places?
No, different places.
Is everyone else on Zoom, or are you producing a live stream?
No, it's Zoom. Just Zoom.
Yeah, you should be able to do that, but call me up if you run into trouble.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
The trick is going to be, you're going to install OBS on both of you. You're going to install NDI tools on both of you. You're going to set OBS to output as your webcam for both of you. You're going to add Singular as an overlay within OBS to both of you. And then you're going to control Singular either through your Stream Deck or through your, whatever it's called, control the website. The real issue you're going to run into is the shifting right versus center, that you're not going to be able to control remotely unless you get real complicated, which you're not going to want to deal with port forwarding and VPNs and et cetera, et cetera. So either you can set it up so he just has a button that controls those two things, or you build that into what overlays you choose to use or not use. Anything else? Okay, it was nice being with everyone. This will be posted to Dreaming Up 5781. I'll also probably upload it to my own YouTube if you want to find it. Yeah, take care.
Thank you so much.